welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Hushain Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. 9 COVID-19 death in Sri Lanka is reported within 24 hours of the 8th death. Modalities to issue temporary travel documents to undocumented workers abroad. News in detail. Just before 24 hours from the 8th COVID-19 death in Sri Lanka, the 9th death was also reported this afternoon. Accordingly, a 52-year-old female from Modera in Colombo, who was receiving treatments at the Infectious Diseases Hospital in Angoda, passed away this afternoon. With the death of the COVID-19 infected patient in Modera, 15 persons from the housing complex where the victim had lived were directed to quarantine.
Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, addressing the media in Colombo, said that a total of 138 individuals from Kolabis area in Kandy, Bandarnayakapura in Rajagiriya and Kolunnava areas were sent to quarantine centres conducted by the Triforce's personnel. He also said that they released 47 individuals who had completed the mandatory quarantine period today, and the Triforces have quarantined over 5,000 individuals by today. He also added that 4,883 persons are being quarantined at 39 quarantine centres at present. Accordingly, Sri Lanka's number of COVID-19 positive cases is 760, with 9 new cases identified for the day as of 7 p.m. today. The health authorities announced that they were capable to recover and discharge 197 patients so far.
U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka and Maldives Aliana Teplitz called on Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa in Colombo this morning to discuss about a wide array of issues such as the COVID-19 situation in the country, economy, elections and other timely issues. During this visit, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has requested the U.S. assistance to aid Sri Lanka's apparel sector, which is now a manufacturing personal protective equipment, to help meet global demand.
During the visit with Premier today, U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka Teplitz has added that United States would like to see Sri Lanka's multinational companies and SMEs successfully overcome the crisis. The ambassador had agreed to follow up on Premier's request to fast-track the production of personal protective equipment in Sri Lanka and informed him that the embassy is already working with companies in different sectors to attach them with buyers in the United States. Moreover, the delegation discussed about the upcoming elections in both countries. Subsequently, in response to criticisms from various parties on mismanaging the international donations given to Sri Lanka in combating COVID-19, the Finance Secretary S.R. Artigala, during the yesterday's meeting with former parliamentarians at Temple Trees, noted that Sri Lanka has not yet received the $172 million loan from the World Bank despite inking an agreement.
එතකොට මේ COVID එකට ලෝකයේ
World Bank has vowed to provide $127 million to Sri Lanka under the crisis response scheme, but the government has not received the funds as of yet. As the Finance Secretary, I have only signed that agreement. You as politicians know that any multilateral and bilateral loan to be provided to Sri Lanka is signed by the Finance Secretary, but I have only signed the World Bank loan agreement for the moment. We have been holding discussions to receive more credit lines from ADB, AIB and other international banks. On the other hand, we have received material donations to combat the COVID-19 under the supervision of the Health Ministry.
Department of Immigration and Immigration plans the measures to issue temporary travel documents to the unregistered workers in foreign countries, facilitating the repatriation of such migrant workers. At a meeting took place yesterday between the Ministry of Foreign Relations, Ministry of Skills Development, Employment and Labour Relations and Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment have decided to set up a mechanism to facilitate the repatriation of migrant workers who were not officially registered once the government decides on a timeline for their repatriation. Department of Immigration and Immigration has already consented to have some modalities to issue temporary travel documents to undocumented workers abroad following proper authentication procedures. Sri Lanka government initially introduced a web portal named as Contact Sri Lanka and asked all Sri Lankans in foreign countries to register. Accordingly, Minister Dinesh Gunawardena and the officials have discussed over the interest expressed through the Contact Sri Lanka portal by migrant workers to return to Sri Lanka, and the amnesties presently declared by Kuwait and Jordan were reviewed. Public Diplomacy Division of the Foreign Ministry also said that the vulnerability faced by migrant workers, particularly in the Maldives, and possible measures to address it were also discussed at the meeting. Minister Gunawardena also briefed those present on the negotiations that have taken place with the foreign governments concerned and efforts being made to be responsive to these governments while ensuring that any repatriation remains consistent with the ongoing quarantine process. Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break. Welcome back after the break. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa calls for debt relief and fiscal incentive for developing countries, including Sri Lanka, from international donors and agencies in order to combat the long-standing consequences of the COVID-19 crisis. He made this appeal yesterday addressing the online summit of the non-aligned movement held under the theme United Against COVID-19.
As Sri Lanka notes the deep concerns that developing countries are facing, an unprecedented economic and debt crisis due to the pandemic, need for debt relief and financial stimulus for these countries must be duly recognized. In this regard, Sri Lanka reiterates its call and joins global appeals for international financial institutions and donors to provide debt relief and greater financial assistance to vulnerable countries.
Speaking further, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa reiterated that financial assistance will be instrumental to make sure that the socio-economic well-being of the country is sustained. He further added that the national and regional initiatives in fighting against the COVID-19 uplift the global response towards it.
It is important to emphasize that middle-income countries too face critical and diverse economic and social challenges that have been augmented by this pandemic. Therefore, it is important to also focus on their needs at this particular juncture and accord the necessary financial support to avert negative income consequences. Sri Lanka believes that national and regional level initiatives complement and strengthen the global response to this crisis.
World Health Organization stresses that even though several countries are now starting to ease lockdown status, the common commitment to basic measures such as cleaning hands and physical distancing cannot be relaxed. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus made these observations addressing yesterday's press briefing on coronavirus direct from WHO headquarters in Geneva.
Several countries are now starting to ease so-called lockdown and stay-at-home orders, but our common commitment to basic measures such as cleaning hands and physical distancing cannot be relaxed. Nor can the commitment to the tools that are the foundation of the response to find, isolate, test, and care for every case and trace every contact, and to ensure health systems have the capacity they need to provide safe and effective care for all. But just as the number of new cases and deaths is declining in some countries, it's mounting in others.
Speaking in view of the International Hand Hygiene Day and the International Day of the Midwife, which falls on today, WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus highlighted that nearly 3 billion people lack water and basic sanitation facilitations at homes.
At the same time, we must remember that millions of people around the world are not able to practice this most basic of precautions. Around the world, less than 2/3 of healthcare facilities are equipped with hand hygiene stations, and 3 billion people lack soap and water at home. This is an old problem that requires new and vastly increased attention. If we're to stop COVID-19 or any other source of infection and keep health workers safe, we must dramatically increase investments in soap, access to water, and alcohol-based hand rubs.
And that's all news for today. See you tomorrow with State of Business at the usual time. Until then, take care. Good night.